dabble with aliens. Now meet the genuine article.
The Genuine Article, a Doctor Who podcast by James Sumner. Thank you for joining me, Marcus. Back again for our second Doctor Who podcast of 2024. And in lieu of new episodes, we've prepared some hot takes. Some are much hotter than others. Yes. We've not told each other our hot takes. We've prepared 5. Nope. And we're going from what we think probably is the hottest, the least hot to the hottest.
I would love to go first, because this is my coldest take. I think that you agree, and if you don't, I've got words to speak to you. I've just written down, if we have another dramatic I'm the Doctor moment, I will kill someone.
Okay. Elaborate on your point for the viewers, because I know what you mean by an I am the Doctor moment.
I struggle so much anytime anyone in the show, any writer, has the Doctor dramatically either have a speech or just say in a hyper dramatic way, I'm the Doctor. It's the worst. It's the absolute worst to me. It makes me cringe so hard. I can't tolerate it anymore.
What are some of the biggest examples that really come to mind when you think of an I am the Doctor speech?
Voyage of the Damned, where David Tennant has the big monologue about how he's saved 12,000 bajillion people and he's going to save everyone there. And then he ends it with, got a problem with that.
I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous. I'm 903 years old and I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below. You got a problem with that?
And then fails to save every single person in that room, which makes it even funnier in hindsight.
You can make it like funny from that, but they're not going for that. They're going for like, this is the coolest thing you've ever seen in your life.
Well, it is the coolest thing. To be fair, I do remember as a kid, that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. But yeah, I agree. Going back, it's cringe as anything.
But it's a family show, and every human adult knows that is agonizingly cringe. My other least favorite, and it's also when I am the Doctor is used as a punchline for comedy. I really don't like that either. And my one particular one...
Ooh, I can vaguely think of a Moffat-y time where it was sort of like...
Yes.
I'm the big old Mr. Man, the Docky Dock, and then Riversong's like, but you don't even know how to pilot the Tardis or something like that.
No, it's one that's worse for me.
Oh.
And it's my least favorite Moffat line ever, I think, which is in The Witch's Familiar, when he comes in Davros's travel chair, and he's drinking a cup of tea like it was written by Reddit.
Yeah.
And he says, I bet you're wondering where I got this cup of tea. I'm the Doctor. Deal with it.
Well, the real question is, where did I get the cup of tea? Answer, I'm the Doctor. Just accept it.
And that line right there hurts me so bad. It's so cringe, and it's such a fundamental misunderstanding of the character as well to me. But the main thing for me is that when you have the Doctor dramatically say, I'm the Doctor, it feels like the writer congratulating themselves, if that makes sense.
And if one writer is known to congratulate himself, it is Mr. Moffat, who loves a good old congratulation of himself.
And he loves an I am the Doctor as well. He puts one in every other episode.
I was going to say, the first big I am the Doctor is probably the one you mentioned on the Space Titanic. One of the biggest ones that I remember is in the 11th hour, but I like that one because I think when you've just regenerated, and especially if you've just regenerated after Tennant, which is hard, as Ncuti has figured out himself, you have to sort of be like, I am the Doctor, get a load of this, because people are going to... And you hear it all the time, with people going, I stopped watching after Tennant. You had to prove that he was the Doctor. And I think in the 11th hour, he did a very good job. I find the entire Pandorica speech cringe as anything. I'm still talking.
Bad news, everyone! Because guess who? Ha! They sent you lot, you're all whizzing about. It's really very distracting. Could you all just stay still a minute? Because I am
it was.
That I really struggle with the Time of the Angels, where it's like, if there's one thing you never put in a trap, it's me, and then fires a gun. That's cringe.
I hate the war. I hate the war speech with Capaldi, and I know that's a crime. He does a very good job of it, but he's doing a very good job with a very cringy thing.
Yeah. But that kind of writing is something that I just don't want to see in Doctor Who anymore. I don't like a hyper self-congratulatory Doctor in a way that feels very writery and feels very, I don't know, it feels disconnected enough from the reality of the show that I become disconnected from the reality of the show. Because the Doctor in Classic Who says I'm the Doctor all the time, but it's always introductory and it's small scale, and that's kind of like the point. It's one of
the genuine article.
It's supposed to be kind of like it's supposed to be a sly way of getting out of saying what your name is, not like I'm sick and this show's been going on for 60 years and you know what my name is and you're gonna get goosebumps. It doesn't work for me at all.
I think the 6th series really is like the lowest point we ever get with that. With it's like, that in some planets, Doctor's the word for Great Warrior, and
hell.
we get the word Doctor from you, and it just becomes a whole, and that's a whole thing. But like, there was a real rot point. I do think Stephen realized it too and pulled it back. And we didn't really get much of that at all with Jodie. No. I don't think Jodie had. The only time I can think of Jodie doing an I am the Doctor is in the Haunting episode, where she's like, I'm the Doctor, and the way that our power structure works is that we're a pyramid and I'm so far at the top. And I quite like that because it was very out of character for Jodie.
Because sometimes this team structure isn't flat. It's mountainous, with me at the summit, in the stratosphere, alone.
It was like Jodie cracking in her nice girl
it's my favorite example of that kind of dialogue. It's the one that for me fits the best. Ironically, considering I don't often celebrate Chibnall's dialogue, but I think that scene really does work fairly well. But anyway, that is my coldest take. I think a lot of people agree that type of writing is cringy. And when the Christmas special ended with an I'm the Doctor, I just really hope that is the last one we hear for the duration of Ncuti's run.
I think it's fine in that one because it didn't have a speech to come with.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he just says a fact. He's like, and she's like, "What are you?" I'm the Doctor, and like that's it. And it's the end of the episode. And it's fine.
Absolutely. Like, you compare it to Deep Breath, to Capaldi's first episode where he goes, "I'm the Doctor. I did a and it goes on for like 2 minutes.
No, I love that. I love that.
It just doesn't do anything for me. But anyway.
To be fair, I think it's only okay in regeneration episodes because it is very much sort of your pitch to the audience. And I think Capaldi's is one of my favorites because he's like, I'm the Doctor. I'm not nice, but I am kind. And I'm gonna be making hard choices, and I'm not gonna be like 10, and I'm not gonna be like 11. It's really setting. It's like him making a pledge, a
statement on what the show is at that point.
And I think that was really needed because we were all so sick of 11 at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
The deep
anyway,
rot.
that right there is my number 5. James, what is your ice cold take for us to start things off?
I don't even know how ice cold this is. My ice cold take is my 5th rank is Class was good.
You're starting off with a piping hot cup of tea right there. Elaborate.
I know nobody watched it. But I think for those who did bother to watch Class, A, it has a banger opening for no particular reason. B, I think it did a much better job. If you look at Torchwood, which is grown-up Doctor Who, I think Class did a much better job of being a slightly darker show than Doctor Who. It's very hard-hitting that teenage demographic. There's a little bit of sex, but it's not Torchwood sex gas. There's like a bit of peril. People get their legs chopped off and like they're permanently gone, and they just have to deal with that. And you're like, oh, this teenager who was a football player now has one leg. This is kind of messed up. There's some really good stuff with like alien politics. One of the main characters is an alien, and he has a very blue and yellow morality. He just doesn't agree with human opinions on stuff, so he's willing to sacrifice things that he thinks are worth sacrificing. There's a lot of interesting stuff in Class. And did you ever watch Class?
I watched 20 minutes of the first episode, and I'm afraid
Yeah.
after that I just simply did not carry on. You told me to watch it and I gave it a go, and I may have watched the whole first episode, but I can't remember it.
It gets better after the first episode, which is always like a bad sign. But if I don't like the way the Doctor acts in the episode either. I think it's very out of character for him to leave all these children in this situation.
Yeah.
It's what it is. I think when you get past the first episode, the characters grow a lot. There's some really good sci-fi ideas. Like there was like this episode where like a big root connects everybody's brains, and it makes you want to sacrifice your free will to be part of this collective, and it makes your dead loved ones appear to you, and they're like, go on, just be part of the collective. And they're just really persuasive. And everybody in the show has to deal with like a dead mum or a dead dad or a dead uncle or something. And they're just like, go on, just sacrifice yourself. It's all cool. And like some of the characters want to do it. And I think there's some really good sci-fi in Class. You just have to give it a try. Right. And do you mind being spoiled on the series 1 cliffhanger that never got resolved?
Oh, go on, treat yourself.
It's revealed that the cult that have been controlling the school is a cult run by the Weeping Angels, which I think is a weird, interesting stinger that they definitely didn't plan, but then threw in at the last minute. And while this obviously has no plan and no correlation, the fact that the Jodie series established that the Weeping Angels are servants of the Time Lords, dodgy Time Lords, I think that you could do something cool there, but I don't think anyone ever will. I know there are Big Finish adventures, but from what I've loosely heard, that the Big Finish Class Series 2 has nothing to do with the Weeping Angel controlling cult. So, yeah, so that's my Luke... And the reason I rated it lukewarm is that I'm not like a ride or die Class fan. I just think Class is pretty good. I think if you like Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood, Class is probably of a higher quality as a television program and effects and things. It's a higher quality than both of those. It's more mature than Torchwood Series 1 for sure, if you want a darker Doctor Who, without rubbing it in and being like gross about it. And I think if you want Doctor Who but a bit darker, and maybe you didn't enjoy the Jodie era, which is when I watched Class, it was a bit more like a bit of a sci-fi treat.
All right. Well, you know what, James? You convinced me to give it a second shot, because it's on iPlayer now, right?
It is everything's on iPlayer, I believe. Yeah. And if it's not there already, it might come later.
Well, now's as good a time as ever, I suppose, to jump into Class and give it a second shot. Well, James.
Yeah.
My number 4, and I almost regret putting it at number 4 because I actually think that this is a hotter take than it was in my head.
Yeah.
I don't think Murray Gold should have come back.
I don't know about should. I could have lived without. Why do you think he shouldn't have come back?
I think that Murray Gold has proven over time that he has done kind of like his best work already with Doctor Who. I think obviously the Murray Gold fatigue by the time you get to Capaldi and the show's score is just the exact same 3 songs over and over because it just feels like he doesn't have a clue what else to do. Obviously that's there. But now that he's come back, every time I hear his songs in the episode, I just get this feeling that it's all a bit more kind of like Capaldi era Gold than it is like solid Gold, if that makes sense.
I couldn't tell you that I noticed that much Gold in the Shooty episode. I picked up a lot of recurring themes in the 3 14th Doctor specials. I was fine with them because it was the nostalgia special. I can't agree or disagree with this take yet because we haven't got a full series of it yet. If this series is very much I Am the Doctor on loop, I'm down with you for sure.
Yeah.
I do think, though, I'd rather this than what we got during Jodie's era, where I don't remember any of the music. Yeah. At least I remember some of the music here. But I would have been fine with something new in terms of something very new.
Yeah, I think just aesthetically, my biggest concern with the new era is that aesthetically it's not going to be bold enough, because I feel as if right now it feels like it's visually kind of a continuation of Whittaker-ish stuff, although in my opinion done with a bit more flair. And on the level of audio, it really does feel to me like I'm listening to Murray Gold, but it's not the Murray Gold that I particularly love. It's that feeling of like, I feel like I've heard Ncuti's Doctor theme. The dun, 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 dun. I feel like I've heard that plenty already. I feel like I'm already tired of that, and I feel like they played it a lot of times in the Christmas special from what I
You've
remember.
rewatched that Christmas special more than me, though. I've watched it once on my own and once with you. Maybe that's why I'm not so sick of it. I will say I have been rewatching Series 10. And I agree with you. I didn't at the time because I didn't notice it, but I agree with you that they overuse Capaldi's theme so much. And it's almost worse than the Matt Smith repetition.
Oh, 100%. At least with the Matt Smith one, it's like, there's a sense of momentum with the Matt Smith one where it's like, even though you know that you've heard this song a million times, like, as that plays, the scene progresses as the song progresses and it builds up to a crescendo. With Capaldi's one, it just comes in, it's just like a flat, consistent thing.
I think he kind of needed a new theme with Bill, because I think that theme really fits the Am I a Good Man Clara era.
Yeah.
But when he's like chill university professor, why is his theme so sad?
Yeah, I feel like
maybe if you'd not used it all series, then if you want to bring it back in the Doctor Falls, which is like the most miserable ending to any Doctor ever, I think it would have hit harder.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I don't know, something like Ncuti's theme honestly would suit Series 10 Capaldi. You know, something a bit more jovial, you know, with a bit of brass in there and everything. And I will say, you know, I like Ncuti's theme just fine. And when I first heard it, I really loved it. But the more I'm hearing it now, the more I realise that it doesn't... I don't know, there's a certain mood to the best Murray stuff, you know, like the original Doctor's theme for the Eccleston and Tennant run. That kind of like ethereal quality that the vocal version of that has really adds something to every single scene that it's in. But I worry that a lot of the time Murray's themes just feel a bit like placeholder in the same way that Sagan's do, except Sagan's is much more ambient and, in my opinion, much more underwhelming. At least Murray's is bombastic typically.
Yeah, but, like right now I don't have a problem with Murray, but it really time will tell, I think, on Murray.
Yeah, and I don't know, in terms of, I think it would help the kind of like the aesthetic and the feel and the mood of the show to have a completely fresh kind of musical voice, because it does kind of sound like we're back to Murray. Whereas I agree. I could just imagine somebody coming in and bringing a sound to Doctor Who that we haven't heard before, in the same way that, you know, that moment where you're watching Classic Who and you go from the 70s to the 80s and that 80s score hits and you're like, what the hell is this? It's really incredible. And even down to like the differences within the 80s between the scores in like the Davison era versus the Colin Baker era versus the McCoy era, like they all had such different feels to them. And I kind of wish that we were carrying on in that respect, as opposed to just kind of like going back to a guy who is going to do the job just fine. I feel as if there's so many kind of like young aspiring musicians out there who could have done a stellar job. And I don't know, just a part of me in my heart wishes that one of them got it instead. And that is my number 4 hot take.
And I don't disagree, but I don't agree yet, just because I think we haven't got enough of Big Murray this time round for me to decide if he's tired yet. But you could be very right if he keeps up with the nostalgia bait. My next take is, I think units suck and they make everything worse, and I wish they never brought them back after Jodie's era got rid of them.
Oh dear.
And I hate them. I hate everything about Unit.
You are a Unit hater.
I think. Okay, I don't hate Unit in Classic Who, because in Classic Who it served a very different purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think the third Doctor with Unit was quite fun because he had nothing else to do.
Yeah.
I think in the modern day, Unit actively make episodes more boring by being there. I think there's no need to investigate when we have the Unit team and the scientific advisor comes up and goes, Doc, they crashed here, they're doing this, 7 people are dead, and they're over there. I think
you're quite right.
During the 11th era, they had nearly unlimited resources to send soldiers around the world. Like during the Zygon invasion, they're like everywhere, and it's like, oh, we're going to send some people to Afghanistan and America, and we're all over the world. I think having the Doctor too close with government ties takes away something special about the investigation element of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And you have to be a good writer to sort of just explain why he doesn't just ring up UNIT all the time. I think Russell did an amazing job in Russell T Davies 1 with the depiction of UNIT in the Sontaran stratagem. With David's or Ten's, I kind of appreciate UNIT, but I don't really like them anymore vibe. And I think that's very in line with the Fourth Doctor when he regenerates and he's like, you know what, I'm done with you guys, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
I appreciate that different Doctors can have different views. I didn't love 11 being so pro-UNIT. I also think Kate Stewart is one of the most boring characters in the history of television.
Oh,
and I don't
absolutely.
get why people like Kate Stewart.
I can't.
I think the actress seems fun in interviews, but I think the character's terrible.
Absolutely. I can't name you a single character trait of Kate Stewart.
Secretly ableist.
Yeah, that's it. Just prejudice.
That scene was her best scene in Who.
Oh, 100%, because at least she did something.
He got to emote.
Yeah, exactly. And I you know what, James? I'm in 100% agreement with your hot take. I really, really am. I think that UNIT is there to serve a purpose. It was invented in the show to serve a purpose in the show, you know? It was there. Yeah, basically. It was like, you know, this Doctor Who is a scientist guy on Earth. Let's make him a scientist guy with like a bit of an army around him, you know, with like a guy that he's got to answer to.
And a jeep to get places.
Yeah, 100%. It's like it's an idea for that type of show, and if you want to do that type of show, then that's fine. Because like the Sontaran stratagem is absolutely that kind of show. It really feels like something from Pertwee era modernized, and it really. But
you can
really
see
works.
how, and you can see it's something from the Pertwee era, and you can see the Doctor go, you know what, I don't vibe with this anymore. My modern day sensibilities and my more modern political views and way of viewing the world, especially post Time War, where he's much more anti-soldier and anti-war.
Yeah.
I think you could really tell that 10 has outgrown UNIT.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to do soldier stories, I think I prefer the way they handle it in the Stolen Earth and the End of Time, not the End of Time, but the Stolen Earth and the other Donna finale episodes.
Journey's
where
End.
UNIT are
Journey's
doing
End.
their own thing, and the Doctor doesn't approve of it. He's not like, I'm going to shut you down, because they are doing it for the good of the Earth, but the Doctor doesn't have to be happy about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas 11 switched the gear, and UNIT very much became part of the Doctor's suite of tools, and I don't like that. And 12 did it used them even more, I'd say.
Yeah.
Actually, no, 12 did a lot more in his President of Earth capacity than his UNIT capacity.
Yeah.
But that's a different story for another day.
Yeah, I think my favorite UNIT story, and this is a hot take for people who watch classic, I think, is Robot, the first Tom Baker episode, because I think that it just gets way more interesting when the Doctor kind of doesn't want to be around UNIT anymore, like you said. As opposed to just, you know, being part of that team when the Doctor's actively trying to rebel against the team and then eventually has to work with them, you know, when it's necessary. I think that just instantly adds more character drama. That, you know,
people talk about the UNIT spin-off, and I think the UNIT spin-off might be the most boring. You've got two choices with the UNIT spin-off.
Yeah.
Is that you start making them human, in which case you kind of lose what's different between UNIT and Torchwood. Because the thing that made Torchwood good and interesting is that they were all horrible people.
Everyone's
and
a hot
the benefit of UNIT, of what who you, in the case of Doctor Who do you call? You call UNIT because they're good boys, and you call Torchwood because they do whatever needs doing. If you do a Torchwood spin-off, if you do a UNIT spin-off, and UNIT are doing dirty deals and dodgy stuff, then they're not UNIT anymore. They're Torchwood, because Torchwood are the shady ones. UNIT need to be good because they are the goodest boys. And if we start corrupting UNIT for good stories, then I feel like we should have just done it with Torchwood. And if we're having UNIT just be the goodest, nicest people, then who wants to watch that? It's boring as anything.
Yeah, and I mean,
unless Martha's back.
Oh, absolutely. If it means Martha comes back, I want a UNIT spin-off. But James,
yeah, and you got to deal with that stupid robot that they never explained.
But I'll tell you what, James. Speaking of not wanting spin-offs, that's my third hot take. I genuinely, at the bottom of my heart, I don't want any Doctor Who spin-offs. I don't really care about Doctor Who spin-offs. I'm just not interested at this point. I'm anxious about the idea of the Marvelification of Doctor Who, or the Marvelization of Doctor Who. I'm worried about too much emphasis being placed on the spin-offs. I think, something like the Sarah Jane Adventures got it done perfectly when it's only really relevant to Doctor Who sometimes on a very rare occasion, and that does feel like an occasion. But I'm very anxious in this era of Disney Plus, knowing that Disney do have their fingers wrapped around this show to one extent or another, because they've already made changes, that they are going to kind of force the show into a position at which you need to, in the style of, I don't know, the Star Wars TV shows, you need to have watched this other TV show to understand what the hell is going on at any point in this other TV show and everything. And I don't know, I'm anxious about the idea of spin-offs. I think the one spin-off that's been basically confirmed, I have zero interest in.
The Legend of the Sea Devils, or the Secret Legacy of the Sea Devils, whatever.
The battle between the land and the sea.
Oh yes, isn't it the war between the war for land and sea or
something like that? Silurians versus Sea Devils.
Who cares?
Which are the same characters in different costumes.
Yes, I agree. I'll agree with you in as far as I don't care a single minute about this Silurian spin-off, because who cares about the Sea Devils? The last time we saw them, they were boring as hell. And without some kind of human character, you're not going to be able to have that insert. And they're either going to do that by having child characters or having a companion equivalent.
Oh, no.
I'm not opposed to spin-offs of Doctor Who because they've had a good track record. You know what I mean? Like, say what you want about Torchwood. It didn't need to be Doctor Who-y, but it was nice that it was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was as long as they do what they did before, and because Russell's in charge, and say what you want about Russell and Marvel, Russell, if anything, to a fault, is feeling like exactly like he used to back in the 2000s. And I think if he were to run the spin-offs, he'd run the spin-offs properly and have them as nice to haves, that maybe in the finale they'll go, and we're going to go help the Doctor in whatever his finale is. You know what I mean? So you don't need it, but then if they come up, it'll be useful.
Well,
I don't worry about them existing. I do worry about what they choose to make spin-offs about, because I think U.N.I.T will be boring, and I think Silurians will be boring. But maybe it'll be the best written thing ever. Like, look at, lots of shows are better than they have any right to be.
Yeah. Like Andor.
Ted is a modern-day masterpiece.
I mean, Andor is the only good Star Wars thing for several years, and it's something that nobody had any interest in.
Exactly. Look at Andor. Andor is a spin-off prequel about a character that nobody cared about from a spin-off prequel that nobody asked for, and debatably people think is very good or very fine and mid. And it's the best thing in Star Wars. So my fan brain goes, I don't care about Sea Devils. Maybe the Sea Devils thing will be the next Game of Thrones, and it will have the most well-written, complex political narrative. Maybe it'll be like the Dark Crystal Netflix show all over again, and it'll be a beautiful work of art.
Well, either way,
maybe it won't.
Like, I just feel like I'm probably not going to watch it. You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's like, I just wish that the time and effort and money that's going to be pumped into these other TV shows that I don't care about will be pumped into the one that I do. And that's my hot take. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about these things. And I think that all that it's going to do is at least subtract. No, at most subtract.
Well, they've subtracted from 12 episodes to 8. So
literally, so they can make more of these things that I don't care about. And what makes me most nervous is every single time I go to watch Doctor Who now, that Whoniverse logo shows up. And it's like seeing death on the horizon for me. The way that they have like the characters and the letters, like it's the Marvel logo and everything, just that makes me so nervous. And I don't know. I'm really scared about what Disney are going to do. Because yeah, sure, Russell has been really rustling, but he could rustle your jimmies just as quick. Let's not forget. You know what I mean? Like, this could go horribly wrong. And overexpansion is the reason that so many things fail. Overambition, And the Doctor Who spin-offs could only last so long before. And it can only last so long this time. You know what I mean? Because in my opinion, Disney Plus is not going to last forever. Disney are going to leave eventually. Disney can't be trusted with this TV show, The reason it's been around for 60 years is because it's public broadcasting. that people care about because it's an institution. Disney don't care if it's an institution. They care if it gets people to sign up for Disney Plus. They will eventually drop this shit, like they drop everything else, because they don't have an artistic bone in their bodies. And they are the ones who I feel are going, yeah, but we need this show and we need this show and we need to fit this demographic and this demographic.
Doctor Who won't be Willow, Marcus. They're not going to Willow him.
No, they may not Willow Doctor Who, but they're definitely going to Willow the chess match for the ground and the water. You know what I mean?
Chess match for the wet ground.
Yeah, chess match for the wet ground is not going to last. I'm sorry, it's just not, because people aren't going to be interested, in my opinion. And
they will be when Martha is the main character and she's leading a one-woman army against the Silurian terror cells found in Unit HQ.
Oh my god. You're right as well. That's what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Wait a minute. Gwen and Reese moved to live on the sea. Maybe it's Gwen and Reese shooting up
versus Martha
with the baby. They've got the baby in.
Torch
and this
with
time
Civil
it's personal.
War.
It's family business.
Oh my god. But the thing is, sometimes I get nervous about Russell and I can imagine him actually doing stuff like that.
Well, he wanted to do Rose Tyler, Defender of Earth, and that sounds like the worst spin-off ever.
Yes. We have to remember that this is the guy who we're trusting with our spin-offs. You know what I mean? The man can write Doctor Who. The man can write good television. But I worry about what he will do when he's let completely loose.
Maybe it's good that Disney hold the reins, keep that man from going mad and making a Mel spin-off.
But Disney are worse. Disney are everything. Disney could be the ultimate enablers of all of his bad instincts. You know what I mean? I really believe that.
Russell, we'll give you the Billy Piper spin-off. She'll come back and she'll defend us from Silurian.
We have her on the phone right now, Russell. Just sign the waiver.
Do you think Russell... It's weird. I don't want to waste too much time. The Silurian thing's weird because Russell never used the Silurians, so he clearly doesn't care about them that much. Why did he shove them in his first 3 series? Why did he bother bringing them back now? Like, I thought it was like a Chibnall thing that cared about... I thought Chibbers cared about the Silurians.
He wrote Silurians and Sea Devils.
Yeah, I heard Chibbers liked those lizard guys, but...
Or maybe Chibbers is doing it.
Oh my god, Chibbers comes back as showrunner for the war between wet ground.
Imagine if Russell gave Chibbers and Moffat their own spin-offs.
King. He's already saved Doctor Who then, because I can stop watching the main show and start watching the Moffat spin-off.
Hey now.
And it stars Dracula.
Saying? Wow, the worst. I think, honestly, to this day, my least favorite TV show.
Yeah. I agree. But we've talked enough about Dracula in episode 1 of this podcast.
Yeah, enough about Dracula.
My next hot take is that I think Riversong is mostly awful.
Ooh, okay.
I think the first episode, obviously very good. Every episode since gets worse and worse and worse. I think her final episode is her least bad in a long time. Because she doesn't remember who the Doctor is. Because the first episode is like, it's kind of cute that she's hinting at a future relationship. Every episode with 11 becomes her worshipping the ground he walks on. She even does it with Capaldi a little bit. It's just less of the episode because she only remembers who he is at the end of it. And she's like, you can't love a monolith and expect it to love you back. And it's weird. The way she's written is weird. And I know it's Moffat showing his hand. But I think she could have been such a cool character. And I bet she is in all those Big Finish spin-off things written by other people. But
including her.
So I think she's probably going to be cooler in the expanded universe. But I've never read a Riversong book because I hate Riversong in the show. So why would I buy a Riversong book? I think you took one of the potentially coolest characters and coolest premises and wore it into the ground by having her appear too much. I think a benefit would have been if we'd maybe had 1 River episode a series, but I think we have about 3 in Matt Smith's first series, and a hell of a lot more. Making her Amy Pond's daughter was the stupidest, worst, most incestuous decision in the show, and almost destroys the Pond unit as a companion for us, because it becomes so odd.
Oh, absolutely. And it worked for me at the time because I was a child, and
I was so angry.
I don't know. It worked for me at the time. I think I just wanted a twist, and it filled that twist hole
You can't
that you
pretend
get
that
from
scene
watching
isn't
Moffat.
so clunkily written as like, we called her pond,
Oh, yeah.
but the only water in the forest is a river, and we don't have a
Oh.
word for melody, so we called her song.
No, they don't even explain the song to melody thing.
They not?
They only explain the river to
I
pond
swore
thing.
down.
Yeah,
Maybe I've Nelson Mandela affected it back into my.
dude. Honestly, I watched that scene again a couple months ago, and it is staggering just how bad.
It's a bad episode
the
anyway.
writing
It's
can
it's the
get.
cherry
Yeah.
on top of a terrible episode.
It's your daughter's name in the language of the forest.
I know my daughter's name.
Except they don't have a word for pond. Because the only water in the forest is the river. The doctor will find your daughter, and he will care for her whatever it takes. And I know that. It's me. I'm Melody. I'm your daughter.
Oh, 100%. 100%. But I have to say, James, I think that I am mostly in agreement with you. I, too, am not a big Riversong fan.
It's a shame because
think,
Alex Kingston is a great actress, and she does a really good job in
she's
other
great.
shows, and she does a really good job in Doctor Who. It's just every time her
Yeah.
and the Doctor are in the same scene, it's terrible. But when she's on her own with Amy or on her own with other characters, she does a pretty good job.
I think that Riversong in Forest of the Dead and Silence in the Library, one of my favorite kind of like
Yeah,
short-term companions in Doctor
amazing.
Who. You know what I mean?
Amazing.
She's incredible. And then
And she was
They-
fine
they-
in
they
the
didn't need to
Angel
elaborate.
two-parter for the most of it, and she just gets worse every time she comes back.
for sure,
It makes
for
you just
sure.
wish that she'd never come back, which is sad.
No, literally,
because she
it-
was so cool.
I'm down to number 2, and it's very good that we're talking about Moffat right now, because I really hope that all of those rumors about Moffat coming back and writing another episode, the more I've thought about it, the more I don't want it to be true. I just don't. I keep thinking about it more and more, and every time I do, I get nervous because at first I went, yeah, but do you remember how brilliant he was when he was writing one-offs, and how much better his writing was when he was writing one-offs? And I thought that for a while, and I went, yeah, that could be exciting. That could be exciting. And then I realized, hang on, let's look at everything he has written for the past decade. Is any of it not terrible? And for me, the answer is no. I can't think of a single thing that he has written from the past
Well, after
decade that
Doctor
I
Who,
didn't.
after the 12.
After Doctor Who, yeah. I can't think of a single thing that he's written that I didn't hate. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I
I agree.
just-
I've hated everything he's written since Doctor Who, but I think you're a coward, Marcus, and you need to roll those dice because he's going to come
Hey,
back and he's
now.
going to come back strong. It'll be like the old days. And watching
Lies.
Series 10
You're
again,
kidding yourself.
Moffat is an absolute unit when he has it going. He figured it out in the last series how to do it all
Mm-hmm.
over again. And I think the problem is that he keeps taking stories that fundamentally aren't Doctor Who and keeps trying to turn them into Doctor Who, and it doesn't work.
Mm.
He just needs Doctor Who again. Give the man Doctor Who. In the same way that like that Rebel Moon film, it's like mid because it desperately wants to be Star Wars. If it was,
Yeah.
if they gave him the real property, he might have done something amazing with that budget and any script that isn't a Disney Star Wars movie script. But because he had to make a whole new universe that's basically a rip-off of Star Wars, it already feels half-baked because he just wants to do a Star Wars film and can't. Moffat wants to do Doctor Who and can't, so just give him the license.
But you see, for me, it feels more like he wants to do Sherlock, but can't. For me, my biggest problem with everything that he's made after Doctor Who is that every single thing is too clever. That's the problem.
That's
for
why
me.
it works when he's not the showrunner, because he is too clever. But his clever is very good if you only have one episode, because he has to think of a beginning, a middle, and an end. If he has a whole series, he will drag everything out, and he'll have hints and tips and tricks throughout every single episode, and it will all become a mess, and he'll have too much money to play with. You've got a 50-minute script with companions that you didn't write, and with a doctor that you didn't cast. And that's what he needs to hone him down. Like a samurai sword.
I used to think the same thing, and then
I agree that his
I just-
last track record hasn't been good, but I think he can do it. You just need to give him a chance.
in my brain, it just comes down to this. It used to be, when I was a kid, it was announced that he was going to be running the show. And it was one of the first times that I was really aware of a writer growing up. And I thought to myself, you know, oh my God, this is the guy who did Blink. This is the guy who did the Doctor Dances. Like, I can't wait for this writer to be writing this show. And I can't wait to see more writing from him. And now I think this is the writer of Dracula. This is the writer of... What was that show even called? The Inside Man? This is the writer of Sherlock. In my brain, I'm like, that old Stephen that we had at that point, which, by the way, you could see bad stuff even way back then. We watched The Girl in the Fireplace recently. I couldn't stand it. I just did not like it whatsoever, because it is everything that I don't like about his Doctor Who already there. And he's capable
But
of it,
everything I
especially
don't
with
like
one-offs.
about Russell's Doctor Who is on display right now, which is the sort of everybody's... It's so nicey, and there's no real stakes, and there's no grit to it. And I know that Moffat has another... Like, it's hard to say because Russell does have some very gritty episodes, but sort of the generic default Russell when he's like having a sleepy week, like a Fear Her or a, you know, like a generic one. Those are so much worse than mid Moffat. Now, I will not say they're worse than lowest Moffat, because Moffat has some real stinkers in Doctor Who. I'm not talking about outside Doctor Who now.
He has several years of
He has several years of stinkers after Doctor Who, but in Doctor Who he has a couple of stinkers. And he has like one whole series of unwatchable TV, which is series 6.
The worst season of television ever. Yeah.
I've seen Dracula, so I won't get that far. But Doctor Who, it's definitely the lowest. Well, okay, my actual hot take for my second hottest take, and this could be hotter than my hottest take, because both of them are fairly hot, but one of them I think you just may agree or not. I think the 14th Doctor may be the most damaging addition to the New Who franchise, more so than the Timeless Child, just executed less offensively to the audience. But I think the 14th Doctor is actually maybe the worst thing to be added to the canon in the last 15 years.
You're nuts.
I'm not nuts.
You're crazy.
I'm not crazy.
What are you talking about? Why?
He didn't need to exist. He shouldn't have existed. And if he existed, he should have been a new spin. Like we looked at the 14th Doctor, and his outfit kind of looked like a bit of a mix, and his sonic screwdriver is 100% a mix between all of the previous screwdrivers. He should have been this amalgam man, but he's just 10 again. And at that point, why give him... I was this big defender, and people were going, oh, he's 10 again. But he's not 10 again. He's the 14th Doctor. They've said he's a new character. David said he's going to be playing it different. He doesn't play it different, and he undermines everything that's gone before him. He only is good for people who have not watched it since Tennant. He's only there for those people, because this whole thing about he needs a rest. I just watched Capaldi spend 24 years with River. I just watched Capaldi settle down for 50 years at a university. I watched 11 spend a bajillion years on the planet Christmas. I've seen the Doctor have loads of breaks. He hates it, or he loves it, but he doesn't need it. Jodie had a pretty good run. I think if 14 had come after 12, when he's like at like suicidal point, that would have been justified. But 13, Jodie, she had a pretty good run. Like, she had a chill time. She managed to stop any of her companions from dying, dropped them all off safe, even had a bit of a girlfriend for a bit. I don't get why he's got so much angst about him. Why did we... And we assumed that through the course of the specials, we'd get an explanation as to why his face has changed back. Even Capaldi's face got an explanation that nobody really needed. They even explained that. So why are they so lazy? You did it because he needed Donna. Why not? Why wasn't Rose involved? If we're bringing back Ten's face, Rose should have been involved in some way, I feel. There's just so much stuff of like, is this 10 again? No? Okay, why does he act like 10 again? If this is 10 again, can we get a bigger justification? And then the whole bi-regeneration thing, the fact that he exists still is a crime. The fact that at all times, where is he? He's not helping here. And the fact that he got to keep his TARDIS, there are no stakes for this man. He lost nothing. He stole fizzy lifting drinks and he won everything. This man has got it all. He got to settle down with Mel and Donna, the most unnecessary companion combination ever. He got to hang out with his TARDIS doing nothing. At least take away his TARDIS. At least take away his TARDIS. The man lost nothing.
You know what, James?
What?
I can't say I 100% agree with you on
Okay,
this.
give me a reason why he had to exist, other than to get people back in the chair, and give me a reason why we didn't have to justify it and then regenerate him.
Okay, I'll give you a reason why he came back, and it is because they wanted people to start watching again.
Okay.
And it worked. It just worked. My biggest problem with it is the fact that all of this happened on the 60th anniversary, which in hindsight does bug me. The more I think about it, the more I think about the fact that the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who was entirely catered to fans of one particular era. That does bother me, now that I think back at it.
You could say Mel's there for the classic fans, but even the classic fans weren't begging for Mel. I like Mel, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
And Mel didn't do anything. She was just there. She was there and she hit on Jodie, and that was it.
I will say, I feel like the fact that the bigger 60th anniversary celebration for Doctor Who was the fact that they added a playlist onto iPlayer does kind of show that it wasn't exactly a successful 60th anniversary special. I think that they were solid specials. I will say that. I also think
I get less solid on them every day.
I'm still fond of all three. And
I'm not rewatching them because the more I rewatch them, the more angry I think I'll get with them.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. But for me, it didn't bother me at all. I think part of me goes, I was never really happy with the way that they finished that character, and now they've gone back and made it better. But then another part of me goes, the 10th Doctor.
And then another how much more did he need? He got a 20-minute montage of him visiting every companion under the sun and saving Luke, saving Mickey and Martha, setting them up. Like, why does everybody get a copy of 10? Why does Donna get one and Rose get one? Like, where's Martha's horrible little goblin copy of 10? Why doesn't she get the little goblin 10 from the end of the Master Paradox?
Oh my god.
Give her the little gobby.
Wow. I'd forgotten about little Dobby Tennant.
Give her Dobby Tennant.
Dobby Tennant. Wow.
And he was a paradox made by the Paradox Machine, so we can justify it by having a third 10 around.
Listen, I'll agree with you on certain points of it that I'm not a fan of. The more I think about the fact that David Tennant's Doctor still has a time and space machine that he can go around the universe in, it is a bit of a have my cake and eat it too.
Why would we ever bring back the 10th Doctor now? Let's say we do another, in like 10 years' time, Capaldi's less grumpy about it, Smith has got no Morbius contracts to worry about, and we want to do a crossover. Do we have him there twice? Like, it's so against the spirit of everything. And I think all you had to do was say it was like a weird anomaly that shouldn't have happened and then undo it at the end. But they've actually reinforced it more than I even possibly imagined that they would. I kind of just thought it would happen and he'd regenerate. The fact that he didn't even go away at the end, it's so perverse to the idea of Doctor Who.
I mean, Peter Capaldi said it best when he said that really what the show's about is about death. And it's about change. And it is something that stands in the way of what the show is really about on that level. And again, that is why, for me, maybe those 3 specials shouldn't have been 3 specials, like we've spoken about.
Or they should have been 3 episodes of one story. And I don't think it justified undoing Donna's ending, because I think Donna's ending, they brought her back, but she did nothing that any other companion couldn't have done. The meta crisis wasn't part of the solution. Donna's Donnerisms weren't part of anything. Returning, you could have had Mel for the 3 specials, and I think it would have been exactly the same. There was nothing about these specials that meant anything in terms of Donna, which I think is so against the nature of it. If anything, Wilf would have been the better companion, but obviously he couldn't do it.
I wonder why they didn't do that. No, I get what you mean. I do get what you mean.
We didn't need her,
similar...
and that's wrong. Like Clara, you can do all sorts of stuff with Clara because she has her Impossible Girl powers. You can justify bringing in a Clara at any point because we have 100 shatters of Clara across the timeline, which is obviously some people have different takes on it, but there's a reason why she would be there, and she has more weight than some of the other companions. Donna's just a normal person. That's her whole thing. But why bring her back to do nothing with her? Other than beat up a puppet, which was great.
Yeah, my biggest problem with it is the idea that, you know, Donna comes back and kind of goes straight back into her old role of the companion. You know what I mean? She's still like, I don't know. I took it as meaning that, like, after the meta crisis, once she got rid of that energy, she still maintained a lot of the knowledge. And I was quite excited for that idea, and if they weren't going for that, then I think that's a shame, because what you get then is, you know, you get like that Romana dynamic of two people on the same wavelength as each other, which is so rare for the Doctor, and is an exciting new take on it.
They did nothing with it.
And they don't. It does just feel like a continuation of Series 4.
Which is fine, but I think Series 4 is over and it ended well. And also, the new status quo doesn't really make sense now. If she's working at U.N.I.T, then we have to justify why we don't see Donna every time we go home. You know what I mean? We're going to get episodes with Rose Noble next series. And we're going to have to say, every single time we have to go, where's Donna and 14? And it's just, oh, they're all somewhere else. And I know but it's just more baggage, and we want less baggage, not more baggage.
Yeah, it's a bit like, do you remember in Power of the Doctor when Graham showed up and they were like, where's Ryan? And he's like, Peru or something. It's literally a one-word response,
But that's one episode, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have to... And where's the companion support group? Like, why aren't they with U.N.I.T if they're all hanging out now? Like, I don't even like the companion support group, but you made it, so you have to deal with it.
Yeah, it does almost feel like a retcon.
No, it is a retcon. I mean? It's just a bad retcon.
It is just it's an indication to everybody that, like, hey, we know everyone stopped watching. If you were watching it back then, you're gonna like this, trust me. And I feel like it would have been better served. I feel like it would have been better served starting off a season, if that makes sense. I would have much preferred...
If we got a whole series of 14, just like one?
Oh, no. I think it would have been better off if, firstly, it should have... The more I think about it, I think I would have liked to have... Even though I enjoyed The Wild Blue Yonder, it gets worse every time I think about it.
Because I'm correct, and they're all mid. All mid. Mid to the ends of the earth.
Wait. But I still really like the Star Beast, but I still think that it could have used a bit more time.
If only it was Shooty's first
And
episode.
I really like...
If only Star Beast was Shooty's first episode, with none of the meta crisis baggage, and how much more banging that would have been.
You're probably quite right, James.
Imagine Shooty punting that little meep.
Oh... Yeah, I bet that would be good, actually.
He starts doing the sex education, point down and laugh at it. He goes, ha, 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 and the meat goes, meh.
That would have been pretty good. And I think that the giggle needed more room to breathe. I think we both agree.
They all needed more room to breathe.
There's so much. There's so many unanswered questions. And I just imagined for a second that, like, hang on, what if we gave these more room to breathe? Like, the next season is 8 episodes. Usually a Doctor Who season is 12 episodes. What if we gave, like, the 14th and Donna the first 4 episodes of that season, and then the last 8 were Shooty?
That's kind of what they did, I guess. If you think about these 4 specials before the 8, this kind of is a 12-episode series.
But I think you give it just one more episode for 2 of those stories. You know what I mean? And suddenly there's more room to breathe. Suddenly you can explain more of, like, why the hell this is even happening in the first place. You can justify it more, because it does need more justification than what they give it.
And the thing is, they have the answers. You know what I mean? They have the answers to everything, and that is the Toymaker. The Toymaker is a god who can do anything. So if you want to explain why Tennant's face is back, you can just say he did it. but then they don't. Why didn't they? Like, all they had to do was just say, I am the toy maker, and I thought it would be more epic if I was fighting the David Tennant's Doctor. He's my favorite Doctor.
Literally,
and they just chose not to do anything, and then Donna has to make like weird half assumptions, like maybe you became David Tennant again because you missed hanging out with me, Catherine Tate.
Yeah. It doesn't come together, and it's really unfortunate.
It's more annoying because all the pieces are there. They have taken all the pieces of the jigsaw and they've got them all in the right places, but then they decided to use glue to stick them together for no reason. They already would have fit.
Yeah, I get you. But can I call it? Wait, James, because I'm not letting you get away with it. I just need.
I mentioned the Timeless Child, didn't I? Yeah, I said that.
I just need to say, James, you calling it the worst bit of canon that's been placed recently is ludicrous.
No, I'm not, and I will defend.
If you're telling me that having 3 episodes of a show designed to get people back on board is worse than ruining the entire canon of the entire show for the sake of one first draft twist.
I will say this now. The Timeless Child is mid, okay? The main problem with The Timeless Child is that it is the Doctor. The issue is...
Yes.
No, I agree. The issue is that we can change that. And I think they already fixed that in these episodes with the toy maker. And he goes, Doctor, I've messed with your canon. Bit quirky, aren't I? And it's great because he's like, okay, so all of the weird origins, like the Doctor being half human in the movie and the Doctor being the Timeless Child, you can just say that was the toy maker being a troll. That's fine. I think those open doors, whereas this mangles ideas. This mangles future stories. Whereas the Timeless Child, I didn't like it. I didn't love it. It took longer than 3 specials to spoil everything because it took the whole of like Flux to really dig in. They spent time digging this hole, and I do think it had damage, but you can ignore the Timeless Child because it's the past. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter how many regenerations there are before the First Doctor because we know everything that happened from the First Doctor to now. Whereas this whole thing with bi-regeneration, this whole thing with Torchwood collecting companions, they are issues for future stories. They are weird things that we're going to have to keep addressing. Whereas the Timeless Child, if you think about it, all it means is that the Doctor is not part of Gallifreyan society, and guess what? They weren't really part of Gallifreyan society anyway. They hated that stuff. And I think it's lazy writing, but I also think that a good writer could do cool stuff with it. I think the faction, not faction paradox, that's an expanding universe. The secret order of Time Lords that the
Division.
What's the actress's name? What's the future?
Jo Martin.
The Jo Martin faction, secret spy Time Lords. That could make cool stories. And they've proven that because Jo Martin was great in her appearances in the Jodie series. Whereas this roots us back to things. You know what I mean? It's not the opportunity for us to do... Because the War Doctor makes no sense when you think about it, but it was good because we got a good actor and we told a good story. And we can keep bringing in weird fugitive doctors, and all you have to do at some point is just say... You know, it doesn't really matter because the First Doctor got fully reset by a loom, you know what I mean? So it's a full new life and it's got a new personality. You know what? You can do stuff with the Timeless Child that could make cool new stories, which I don't like that they have to, but we could. Whereas this 14 Donna thing just looms over the show. And there are people who'll be like, oh, the real Doctor's David Tennant. And I don't like the idea of... If we were to do a Doctor Who movie, we'd use the 14th Doctor because he's more marketable. And all that stuff. It's just like, I think that's more of a looming threat. And it feels like Chibnall was willing to break the canon to try and tell a good story. Whether he succeeded or not is up to anyone. And I think he didn't. But whereas this, I feel like Russell sacrificed good story to put all of his favourite actors in their favourite roles and reset everything to RTD1, which I think is more harmful and comes from a worse place than where Chibnall was trying to come from. Because what Chibnall wanted to do was add a bit of mystery into the Doctor's life. And you can argue about whether you like that or not.
James. we're gonna have to agree to disagree.
I'm not saying he
on
did
this
it
one,
well.
James.
I just think the 14th Doctor is more of a problem now because we can ignore the Timeless Child. Because if it never comes up again, if we never see the Fugitive Doctor again, and it never comes up about where the Timeless Child came from, and the only thing that matters is that Ncuti is adopted. If that's the only thing to take away, that's cool because it opens new emotions that he can access and a way that he can relate to Ruby Sunday. That's a good thing. Whereas I'm always going to be wondering where 14 is because where the hell is he?
He's not in the show
But
anymore.
what? But he
That's
is
how my brain
because
goes.
I know he lives down the road. He lives down the road from where Ruby Sunday lives. He could have gone over and had tea with 15 and Ruby and Mel and Donna after work.
But he lives down the road living a happily ever after, so I'm just never going to think about him
But
again.
why was this
until
a happily
the point
ever
at which
after?
Rose
Until
comes
what?
up?
Until Donna dies? What's he going to do? Kill himself and become Ncuti? Cringe. Absolute cringe. How are they going to deal with that? She only has X number of years. After, like, what? 40 years, maybe, she'll die? And then what's he going to do? Just hang out with Rose Noble until she dies? He's going to become even more bitter than before. How is this meant to de-traumatize Ncuti?
You know, I actually hadn't.
What's he
thought
going to
about
do? They're going to die. Sylvia's going to die soon. Wolf is going to die at some point in canon. They even admitted that Sarah Jane was dead, which I didn't expect them to.
that. You're right, James.
Yeah, what are they going to do? The only thing you can do is kill Donna.
I don't think that Russell thought it through.
And it's just like with
I don't
like
think that
what
I'd thought
Capaldi
it
and
through.
River said, happily ever after isn't ever after. It's just the time you spend. But also, you pitched this as his happily ever after. They're only going to last so many years. They're only human.
God damn it, James.
But
You
I can
ruined it.
ignore the Timeless Child because it's ages ago. Okay, come on, give me your hottest take. Now you've
God
been
damn it.
destroyed by
James,
facts and logic. You need a 900 IQ.
If
to
I
argue
may
with me.
say, I'm gonna need to have a long, hard think about that one, because you're making some good points.
It
And I'm about to make, I'm about to make probably a bad point.
Okay.
Which is I kind of want more Jodie Whittaker in the future.
That's not a bad point. That's a based correct take. I want Jodie back. I
Thank
want Jodie
you.
back.
Thank you.
That's the thing.
Absolutely.
It just takes one episode to be good. I hated Matt Smith
Yeah.
in 7B, but I cried when he regenerated because they wrote it well. You just need to write them
Yeah.
well. And I think she's probably the most likely to do it because she seems to actually have enjoyed her time as the Doctor.
Absolutely. I'm saying that, like, we shouldn't be ignoring the Jodie Whittaker era, and Russell's done a fabulous job so far of, like, every single episode of the specials brings up what happened in the Whittaker era. The Christmas special brings up what happened in the Whittaker era. I'm saying not necessarily now, but in a few years' time, the next time they're doing a multi-Doctor story, Russell, give Jodie
I
a
want
call.
the companion group back. I want Graham.
You want
I
the fam?
I want the fam back. I want Dan back. I want them all back. I think the fam have so much to give that they just didn't have a chance to give. And I think Mandeep Gill really enjoyed her time, and I'd love to see her with Ncuti. Although that would be really awkward because she was in love with her woman. But I would love to see them try and write around that.
And if I may, like, I think that, yeah, even though that character wasn't particularly well written, I think that her performance is very
they gave
strong.
as good as they had.
Especially in the later ones, from like Eve of the Daleks to the Power of the Doctor. I think that she's very, very good in those. And I know that we're going to get some Big Finish in the future. I know that it's coming.
I think there's already been a
understand that.
couple of Big
It's
Finish
inevitable.
Jodie and gang stories.
Oh, really? I know that she's appeared in that radio play for
Jodie's
sure.
had a bunch of cameos all over the shop.
Yeah, but I want her in the show. I want to see her there. I want her written by someone well. Because at the end of the day, it's one of my hang-ups, which is that when that era of the show ended, at first I thought to myself, I'm glad that we're done with this. I'm glad that we can move on from this. But the more that time goes on, the more I feel like I have unfinished business with it, if that makes sense.
For 4 years of our lives, except for they blew up Gallifrey again.
I still feel so dissatisfied, and it just doesn't feel fair. And I just really feel the need to see that. I feel the need to understand that character.
I want lots of stuff to carry over. I want the cyber lords to carry over. I don't like it. I don't like that we turned all of the Time Lords into Cybermen. However, you did it, and I want that to have consequence. I want to feel like this is an evolving universe. I want them to be there, and I think you could do good stories with a better writer of just Ncuti being sad that his entire people they're not dead. They're over there. They're all Cybermen.
Yeah, literally, and there is the fear that they're never going to acknowledge that again. And I mean, they've opened the door so much to so much crazier stuff being able to happen in Doctor Who, and all I'm saying, if somehow, some way, Russell T Davies someday hears this, I beg of him, give Jodie one more chance. She's a very, very, very good actor. I really, really like Jodie Whittaker. Like you said, she seems to have had such a blast on the show.
I like her in every interview I've ever seen. I just wish I liked her in any of the episodes of Doctor Who.
And bring her into it is what I'm trying to say. I still feel like I didn't get any of her in her Doctor. I got the lines that were on the script
and a medium David Tennant impression. It's really funny. My dad, when he watched the specials, he said, "I think it's really interesting that David's acting like Jodie as a homage." And he said, he was like, "I think it's a really good, interesting character decision to act just like Jodie." And I was like, "Dad, I think David's just being David, and I think Jodie was acting like David the whole of her."
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, just nothing but love for Jodie. She did the absolute best that she could with that material, but I just want to see her back in some capacity in the future. I don't really fancy a multi-Doctor story for ages. I think those are for anniversary specials. But who knows, maybe for 65th, 70th, I would love to see Jodie Whittaker get a properly well-written, properly good quality story where she can just show her chops, show her personality. Because I've seen so many interviews with Jodie Whittaker. You know, she was on Kermit and Mayo's Take the other day talking about her new TV show, and like, I just think that she's terrific and so likable and charming.
None of that
none of that was ever utilized. Yeah. And she really could have been a completely charming Doctor, a completely charismatic Doctor. She could have been a Tom Baker. She could have been a Ncuti Gatwa. She could have been all of these things. And she wasn't allowed to be. And she didn't have the chance to be. And I really, really, really want to see that.
I'd like to see it. I don't think it's likely, but I do want as much Jodie hangover as possible, because say what you want about Chibnall, he made weird decisions, but he made decisions. He did a lot of weird stuff, and I would like to see those plot points resolved. I want to see the Cyberlords again. I want to see the Timeless Child. I would like to find out the actual secret behind the Timeless Child, because you can write it better. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad take. I think that's quite a good take. I'd love to see Jodie again. Yeah. And it can't always be David. And I think, like, partially with this 14, I think David's kind of spoiled as a cameo now, because you can't bring him back as 10 anymore. 10's kind of ruined, because 14 will always be the logical choice, because David's older now. Unless you're going to do Disney de-age on 10 and then have David as whatever age David is. But it's just going to be weird.
But like you said, 10 and 14, they're the same character. It doesn't make much of a difference.
But it does in terms of multi-Doctor. In a multi-Doctor, you bring everyone together and everyone shows off their personality traits. I guess at that point, if they do like Gemini Man and have two Davids, they'd make them act very differently. But I don't want that. That's going to be awful. Yeah.
Well, me personally, I don't really want to see Tennant in the show again. I feel really finished with him.
I'd have felt more finished with him if he was dead again.
Yeah. But for me, that his final scene for me, on an emotional level, maybe not on an intellectual, but on an emotional level, was gratifying enough that I'm like, I I feel complete closure with this character. I'm finished.
Even
with
then, I
this.
can't separate it because you've got stuff like Wolf shooting moles, which is a homage to the actor dying, but the character wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like the character hates guns and hates killing, so you're getting tangled. We get so much of the Russell T Davies behind the scenes politics and the meta-ness of things that we want the fans to want, and it tangles the characters. The characters are getting lost in terms of what we want the concepts of them to be. We want 10 and Donna to be together. Well, Donna and 10 aren't together. It's 14 and Donna, and 14's a very different person, should be on paper. And Wilf shouldn't be shooting moles, because Wilf isn't his vibe. But I know Bernard Cribbins like to do that, so it's all getting mangled. It's this meta-textual mess.
And out of all of this, all of it's becoming mangled with stuff that already had a gratifying and satisfying conclusion. And if we are going to get mangled with anything, make it be the thing that just happened that wasn't satisfying. Make it work better. If anyone can make it work, if anyone can make the Chibnall ideas work, it's Davis. And he's proven that already. Yeah.
It's like I say about movies. People are always remaking bad movies. And I felt like a lot of these specials were remaking old hits from the Russell T era, but not quite as good. Stop remaking bad stuff, good stuff. Remake bad stuff. Go back to the bad Jodie episodes and make them work. Go back to mid 11th Doctor concepts and do stuff with them. Don't go back to try and redo Midnight and not make it as good.
Yeah. Because that's the main thing. There is a certain level of redundancy to a lot of stuff that's going on right now in Doctor Who. I feel as if that's no longer the case now that Ncuti's here. I think his Christmas special just did prove that you can continue to make solid original Doctor Who. But yeah, if we're going to be revisiting anything at all, I do want it to be that era. I almost put as one of my hot takes, I actually want the Daleks back a bit more now.
What, more like the 11th era where they were kind of around a fair bit?
Yeah, because I think that Russell always did Daleks very well, in my opinion.
I think his first episode was good, and then I think it was always downhill from there.
Do you think so?
Not significantly downhill, but it just never hit that high. I guess Army of Ghosts was pretty good. Like, okay, there's good stuff, but I think it's like have you heard like the ninja problem?
The ninja problem.
Yeah.
What is this?
It's a thing from like action movies where if your main character is fighting one ninja, they'll have an amazing fight that goes on for 20 minutes and they'll do the best martial arts ever. If your character has to fight 50 ninjas, he'll clean through 50 ninjas and go through them over and over and over again. But when you have one Dalek, it's terrifying. When you have 50 Daleks, we kind of can deal with them fairly easily.
I get you. But I think, I don't know, kind of like mid-level Dalek stories have always been my favorites. I think I like kind of small scale a lot more. I like, in the same way that, in Star Wars tends to be a lot more fun when there's a battalion of stormtroopers and not 50,000 Star Destroyers in the sky. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One Star Destroyer is a problem. 50,000 Star Destroyers will have to find the button which blows them all up.
Yeah, or in the first Star Wars, they've got to go past 30 stormtroopers to get into the prison cell block to save Princess Leia. That's fab. When you have a CGI army, it's completely dissatisfying. And I think that those smaller scale Dalek stories have always been the ones that I'm very, very fond of. Like you said, Dalek. I'm also personally, I'm a big defender of Daleks in Manhattan. I just have a big fondness for it. Yeah,
I think it's a weird episode.
It's the weirdness that I like about it.
I like the weirdness. Yeah. I think with better extras, people would remember it more fondly. The extras are all terrible that episode. The main characters are all good. Like the Dalek Khan actor, I think did a really good job.
Big up Andrew Garfield being brilliant in that episode.
Left me with a briefcase full of Daleks.
I think, but those weirder concepts and those weirder kind of elaborations are the ones that I'm quite fond of. And I feel like something like the Cyberlords is a really weird elaboration and kind of like branch off of the Cyberman concept. And I feel as if give Russell that idea, present it in front of him.
Cybermen
and
with
go,
time travel, but like with actual TARDISes, and they're doing time stuff. I want that.
Yeah.
I want to mix them more, mix the cultures.
Yeah,
more.
see if I've always loved stuff where it's like people try to go back and rewrite history and everything, and I can imagine Cybermen.
Like the
I can
Sontarans
imagine
taking over Russia in the Flux episode.
literally imagine like a nation state of Cybermen. You know what I mean? Because it turns out like instead of the British occupying America, the Cybermen occupied America, and all of America are Cybermen or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many fun ideas that you can do with it, and that is why for me, like when I say a bit more Jodie, I mean actually bring Jodie back. I mean bring the ideas back. I mean, yeah, sure, bring the companions back if you want. I would love more.
I think they're the most likely thing to come back. I just want Yaz to be like Martha, where she needs help. Let's say the Weeping Angels have done. Like, let's say Martha's gone back to the police. Let's say Martha. What am I talking about? Yaz. Yaz has gone back to the police, and she's become a constable or something, or whatever high is, detective, whatever. And she's got a case, and she sees Weeping Angels, and so she has to ring the doctor. But Shooty comes, and she's sort of like, oh, it's a bit awkward. But then you get the whole new companion, old companion. They left me behind. Now got some young blonde. Like, you get a bit of that. It's always a bit of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and the thing is, you know, like that's what works quite well in School Reunion. But the reason why it never fully worked for me with School Reunion is that when you go back and you rewatch series 14, like Sarah Jane and the Doctor leave on pretty good terms, you know.
Yeah, and they're not really that romantic. I never saw 4 and Sarah as a romance.
Oh,
whereas
absolutely
they've
not.
retroactively made it very much into a romance.
Yeah, 100%. And I can just imagine, you know, that character, no matter how much like she's going to be okay and all that, there's going to be emotions that are brought up when she sees that the woman that she loved is now an unrecognizable person. You know what I mean? And that's really exciting. And,
a hot young man.
Yeah, a wonderful, handsome, charming young dude who she will have to have a completely different type of relationship with. And I don't know, I think that there's so much gold to be mined in the Whittaker era. It's like Chibnall scraped off like an inch of dirt in a field from like across all the field. He just kept scraping off inches of dirt and being like, well, can't find the gold. But now it's like, grab a shovel. He's already started it off for you. Get digging. The gold's in there. He just had to dig a bit deeper, which, you know, he probably would have done if he had more time and there was less pressure. He's admitted that a lot of the episodes were first drafts. You know what I mean? It's
Has he
not
actually
fair.
admitted that? That's crazy.
Oh yeah. He admitted that Battle of Ranskoravkalos was a first draft handed in just before they actually shot the thing.
Amazing.
You know? And you get
to be fair, Moffat did that too, but I don't think any of Moffat's felt like first drafts. Even his worst episodes, they didn't feel like first drafts because he's a much
felt
better
overworked.
writer. Yeah, they felt too many. There's too much draft. It's that old saying of I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one. Like I didn't have time to make it good, so it's 5 pages rather than the one good page.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
was that your final hottest take?
That was my hottest take, and I really was not expecting an agreement, and I'm so glad that you agreed, because I think that was like a really nice thing to finish off on. That concept.
I do think my agreement comes from a place of worry for what the specials gave me in terms of RTD-ness.
Yeah.
But there we go. My hottest take, which may be less hot than my anti-14 stance, but I feel like it would have been very hot about 5 to 10 years ago. I think that 12 and Clara have the most intense romance in the entire series, more so than 10 and Rose can even dream of having. I also think it to be at such an extent that I bet that if 12 had a choice between pushing Rose down some stairs to save Clara, I think 12 would have pushed Rose down them stairs in no time.
Well, here's the thing, James. Here is the thing. If you are around most other people, that is a hot take. But let me tell you, I've never agreed with something more in my life. Whether or not they intended it, those two have the most chemistry.
It's sexual chemistry. It's not romantic chemistry. It's
when
weird.
they look each other in the eyes, it's kind of ravenous.
It's primal.
I know it's very primal, but there is something incredibly romantic about it.
Oh, it's
Those-
so much love there as well. But it's like an energy. Like 12 and not 12, 10 and Rose is cute dates, and they put each other on Facebook official. Whereas Clara and 12 is like raw and real. Like they are holding back from each other because they don't think that they're right for each other, but they are. Well, maybe they're not. Maybe they're very not right for each other, but in the wrongest of rightest ways.
Clara, I'm not your boyfriend.
I never thought you were.
I never said it was your mistake.
I mean, Face the Raven is one of the most kind of like affecting departures for a companion, and it is down to that moment when they're saying goodbye to each other, and you completely believe the love between them. Completely believe it. It's
even before
stunning.
that though. I think series 8 does an amazing job of a romance between two people whilst one of them has a different boyfriend.
Is it like
Like what?
an addiction?
Well, you can't really tell if something's an addiction till you try and give it up.
And you never have.
Let me know how it goes.
Hey, Danny, how are you?
I'm fine.
So, is it done?
Yep. Mission accomplished. Listen, I can't talk now, but I'll see you soon, and, I love you.
I love you too.
No accounting for taste.
Okay, see you soon.
Was that Danny? What did he want?
He's fine with it.
Sorry.
Danny, he's fine with the idea of me and you knocking about. It was his idea that we stop, but he's decided he doesn't mind, and neither do I. Oh, to hell with the last hurrah, let's keep going.
It's a big change of heart.
Yeah, they happen.
Seriously?
Look, as long as you get me home safe and on time, everything is great. I am so sorry. I've had a wobble. It's a big wobble, but it's fine. Forget about it now. Shut up and give me some planets.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
weird
yeah.
that she has Danny, and she does love Danny. She doesn't not love Danny, but she doesn't love Danny as much as she loves the Doctor. And the Doctor knows that, and she knows that, but the Doctor isn't on the table, so she's getting on with things.
And may I say, James, Danny Pink is massively overhated.
Oh no, I love Danny. Danny's a really important
really like
character
Danny, yeah.
because she did love Danny. She just didn't love Danny the same way she loves 12.
I
And it
think
wasn't
people
until
don't-
Danny died that she could go back to 12 fully aware of how she really feels of him.
Yeah.
And I still think Danny's one of the best characters in the show because of his sacrifice and because of the way it makes Clara go through emotions. Like the betrayal scene. I think there's so much there. And it's not just about the quality of the acting, because 10 does lots of good acting. David Tennant does loads of great scenes and speeches. There was never a moment between 10 and Rose that felt so romantic as when 12 forgave Clara for betraying him and says, you know, do you think I love you so little, I care for you so little, that you betraying me would make any difference?
You're going to help me?
Well, why wouldn't I help you?
Guess what I just did?
You betrayed me. You betrayed my trust. You betrayed our friendship. You betrayed everything that I've ever stood for. You let me down.
Then why are you helping me?
Why? Do you think I care for you so little that betraying me would make a difference?
Watching that series for the first time, when it got to that moment, was the moment that I realized how much I loved that series. You know?
Yeah, that
it is
finale
genuinely
retroactively
fantastic.
makes so much of that series even better.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's like, even because the only place where I'll slightly disagree with you is that I'm not as convinced that it was intentionally romantic.
I think I remember reading in an interview, Clara was playing it. And I think I read some stuff. Capaldi was actively avoiding it because he didn't want the show to be weird with an older romance with a young woman. But Clara's actress was super into it, and she was playing every scene. And apparently Capaldi has sort of come round on the idea by the end of it, but he was against it at the start. And there's so many scenes that you just can't read any other way. The way that she's saying to Danny, "I love you" on the phone, but looking the 12th Doctor directly in the face. Yeah, and it's just, there's so much. It's like you're watching a Love Actually movie. There's so much subtext there.
God, you know what? I've said I'm going to rewatch a lot of the stuff. I am putting Series 8 on as soon as we end this episode.
I think Series 8 and 9 are like the strongest the show's ever got. And I think 10 is a very good refresher, but 10 is nice because of how simple it is. But I think 8 and 9 have like this beautiful crescendo of desperation. Like you saw how broken, like 10, his heart broke when Rose got trapped in the other universe. 12 went insane when
his whole soul
died.
is destroyed.
He shoots
his whole sense
a Time
of being.
Lord at point blank range for her.
I will not let Clara die.
She's been dead for half the lifetime of the universe. If you try to change that, you could fracture time itself.
Doctor, Lord President, are you really going to take that risk?
Doctor. Please. I don't want this. Put it down, please.
Regeneration.
10th.
Good luck. You too, sir.
Miss Clara person, you must really like her.
Why did you say that?
You killed a man. You don't seem the type.
And you know
then
what?
he goes nuts.
Any other Doctor companion combo, you do that, I'm like, that's not the Doctor. You do that with those two, I'm like, that's Capaldi's Doctor.
Well, that's the thing. At the time, everyone hated that episode, and I also hated that episode because it was weird and it was odd. But when you rewatch it all closer, back to back, when it's not been 12 weeks since the first episode of Capaldi and Clara, you're like, yeah, I guess he would go nuts, wouldn't he? Like, he loves Clara. He loves her. You should get married to her if you love her so much, Capaldi. Because like they literally break all of time. I would have been fine with her leaving when she was meant to have left. At the end of Series A, and I think that final goodbye. Do you remember how it goes?
Yeah. Oh, the hug.
Yeah, because the Capaldi's Doctor is anti-hug because he thinks hugs are for liars, and then he says goodbye to Clara. He hugs her, and he says he saved all the Time Lords, which he failed to, and she says she saved Danny, which she failed to. And if they ended that relationship there, that would have been another perfect place to end.
Yeah,
with them
absolutely.
breaking their rule of trust.
But that just kind of goes to show how much the storytelling is just banger after banger in terms of that. I mean, I think I'm less fond of Series 9 than you are, just because I think there are a couple of episodes that are just clunky on their own.
There are some stinkers, and I think there's some stinkers, like even in Series A, I think watching Robot of Sherwood wasn't like amazing, but when you go back knowing how it's all going, I think at the time it was annoying because we'd recently established that Capaldi wasn't interested in Clara romantically, but then Robot of Sherwood is just nothing but a
love triangle,
manly bout of fist pumping to try and prove that they deserve Clara's attention more, and so it feels regressive. But then you rewatch when you finish the whole series, you have to see the whole picture, and it's like, okay, so the 12th Doctor is regressive. He isn't over Clara. He's just trying.
Yeah, 100%.
And then you see his face when he thinks that she fancies the guy that looks just like 11, and that's such like a good moment for him because you know what, I approve of her going out with someone that looks exactly like me, but no one else.
You know what? It's such a shame that an episode, because I also quite like The Caretaker, and I know
love
you
The
do
Caretaker,
too.
and I know
It's
that
such
it's got
a
a dodgy
shame.
writer, but
It's such a shame that such a good episode is written by such a bastard, because otherwise people would admit that it is just so ridiculously good. It is the Doctor Who sitcom that I've always kind of wanted.
People were nasty to that episode even before the writer was a bit dodgy, and I never got why people were quite so.
I mean, the robot's lame, but that's it really. There's a lame robot. Lots of Doctor Who has lame robots. But anyway, I really, really really love that, and I do agree with you. When I'm rewatching, I get so emotionally invested in that much more. I'll say this, like, in terms of the quality of the episodes, Journey's End and Donna's Farewell is far better than Clara's Farewell. But Hellbent, when he's talking to Clara and he has no idea who she is.
When something goes missing, you can always recreate it by the hole it left. I know her name was Clara. I know we traveled together. I know that there was an ice warrior on a submarine and a mummy on the Orient Express. I know we sat together in the cloisters and she told me something very important, but I have no idea what she said. Or what she looked like. Or how she talked. Or laughed. There's nothing there.
And they have that final moment where they go their separate ways. I get really, really emotional when I'm watching that. It's so
You
affecting.
have to see it all, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's when you watch it piece by piece, it doesn't fit in quite so much. But when you watch series 8 and 9 back to back, you've got all these cool little moments of the first episode. It goes, "You don't see my face, Clara. You look at me and you don't see me." And then at the beginning of series 9, he's like playing Pretty Woman in the crowd, and then Clara's like, "You saw me in the crowd?" And he goes, "How could I? There was a crowd. I didn't see a crowd. I only saw you." And then in the final episode, she's like, "Oh, you could be speaking to her right now. How would you know?" And he goes, "Oh, I'd know if I was talking to her." It's so heartbreaking.
You don't know who you're looking for. I mean, she could be me, for all you know.
There's one thing I know about her. Just one thing. If I met her again, I would absolutely know.
Honestly, it's the kind of season-long and era-long storytelling that Moffat had been trying to do all along, but it really feels like him perfecting it. Even if the individual episodes, some of them I'm not a fan of, Kill the
No,
Moon,
like, I think there's
fuck
always
off.
stinkers in every series of Doctor Who. Like,
But
you can't
you
judge
can
an
say it for
era. You can't
everyone.
judge an era on its episodes. You have to judge an era on its full picture, which is why I think 11 is soured so much. Because I think all of 11's big picture stuff is terrible. I think there's loads of good individual 11 stories.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much good individual 11 stuff, but there's no good big picture. Whereas 12 may have a stumble here and there, but I think every time it paints the bigger picture. Like 10 is filled with weird half episodes, but when you put it in context with the finales, that always pays off.
100%, 100%. Well, James, I'm glad that your last hot take was a capital H, capital O, capital T hot take, because that chemistry is fizzling.
Palpable.
It's the most palpable tension the show has ever had. Those two have the hots for each other. I find it very, very funny that the more time goes on, the more people start to fancy Peter Capaldi. I'm glad that people are catching on. But yeah,
He's the
thank
Rizzler.
you. He really is. Well, James,
Although
thank
at
you.
the time, I always thought his Pretty Woman was for Missy and not for Clara. But going back, it's obviously for Clara. But at the time, I was like, Clara, why are you assuming it's for you? It's definitely for Missy. But no, it was for Clara. It was for Clara.
Absolutely.
At that point, I was an anti-12 and Clara shipper because I thought it went against
brave
his
enough.
established rules. He said he didn't want her, and then he did. And I was like, you're being inconsistent. And I was like, yeah, but that's the whole point of his character. He's an inconsistent fool.
Yeah.
And Marcus,
James.
thank you for sharing your hot takes.
Thank
I'm
you,
excited because next time we're going to react to your hot takes, and we want you to leave your hottest takes in the comments, and we're going to run our greasy fingers through some of these interesting takes. And they can be about classic Who, they can be about modern Who. I know a lot more about modern than classic, but I have dipped my toe in the water. And
I know a pretty big chunk of classics, so feel free to put your classics in there. I can't wait to hate this small community that we've created, James.
Yeah,
I can't wait to instantly despise them. And
I've read a few already. We've got some submissions already because I said we were doing this, and some of them are absolutely wild.
Okay, I'm ready to get rancid. Well, James, thank you so much for sharing your hot takes with me.
That's okay.
And it just seems clear to me from all of these hot takes that we are both people that have dabbled with aliens.
I've dabbled with so many aliens that I don't know what to do with them anymore. I'm the dabbler.
Well, James, You were mentioning earlier that I had to be ready for something.
Yes.
You wanted me to like meet someone or something. What was that about?
I want you to meet the genuine article.